Surely Season of Mastery has less bots than Classic, right? I'm sure it will. Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, WillE here. So we have had a good few months since Season of Mastery has kicked off, and the players have had the time to experience leveling and gradually getting onto endgame. So is Season of Mastery doing any better or any worse than Classic was for around this point in time in terms of real money trading, gold farm?
I am going to guess that Season of Mastery is actually going to have less bots, because there are less people playing Season of Mastery, so there's less of a profit incentive to bot in Season of Mastery. That's my opinion, going into this.
And botting. Well, yes, it's overall being the key word, doing better. Very controversial thing to say, because you better believe that they still exist. In fact, we've a fair amount of footage to look over here, but many of the changes that Blizzard made prior to the season launching have impacted them to a large degree. And there will always be some degree of automation going on whatever they do. That's simply the case with every single online game I've ever seen. Not to excuse poor management of the game or them existing, but oh man, it was not just worse in Classic.
It is not unrealistic. It is unrealistic to expect that there will be no bots in the game. But it is not unrealistic to expect that the company should take action regularly and severely against bots. So like, you're always going to have them, but you always need to get rid of them.
It was way worse than this, and players felt the effect of it to a much greater degree as well. In fact, just for the sake of comparison, I went back to look at some of the old videos that I recorded early on in Classic when bots were starting to really ramp up, and the difference is frankly huge. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is with Classic, botters had the entire duration of the game to get everything working on their end as well as possible. So when Season of Mastery rolled around, they already had all that tech in place, so they should have been able to just fire it off. Even still, it has been mitigated quite a bit, which is good to see. At this point in time, during Classic, you would have been lucky to see a Black Lotus for under 200 gold. In Season of Mastery, for me at least, they're around 50 gold. I don't imagine that price is going to fluctuate too much across the big servers.
Wow, that's actually really, really cheap. And I think another big reason for that is the fact that the spawn, the ways that the Black Lotus and other types of resources spawn has been changed pretty substantially, right? Back in Classic WoW, or sorry, in Season of Mastery, I'm pretty sure, yeah, they increased spawns because of hardcore. No one uses the auction house. That could be it, yeah. But if they're hardcore, then they also wouldn't be selling them on the auction house either. So they would just be effectively removing themselves from the economy.
Spawns of the top herbs in the high level zones on top of Black Lotus dropping from them, as the herbing system works in TBC, and Black Lotus can actually drop from Black Lotus themselves. This has caused the price to come down massively, both in and out of game. In April 2020, 10 Black Lotus would have set you back over $100. Nowadays, it's much less than that. Or so I've heard. You know what else we have going for us at the moment? Well, at the moment at least, no transfers. In terms of battling, gold, selling and buying, not having the ability to quickly hop between low population and high population is extremely beneficial.
Yeah, that helps
Players
a lot.
back in Classic would load upon materials or just herb endlessly on low population servers via automation, pay out the $25 transfer fee to a bigger server with a bigger market, and then offload via real money trading or through the auction house. Again, looking back to April 2020, organized...
I think this is just a good thing in general, that the high-level materials are more prevalent, especially in a seasonal server. Like, if you want to talk about, like, you know, base Classic, hashtag no changes, yeah, sure, I'm on the same page. But, like, if you're talking about a seasonal server that's meant for, like, kind of a challenge league type thing, I think it makes sense for the resources to be accelerated.
Farmers used to plant, quite literally, level 1 warrior scouts on Lotus spawn locations on the low population servers, so that as soon as one of them ever popped up, they could have a herber run over there in absolutely no time at all. And Blizzard did actually address this during Classic, making it so you needed the herbalism level to see them whilst being dead, but instead people just started to level hunters, spamming their eagle eye macros on each spawn to work out their locations instead. So
exactly, like, the thing is, the problem is that some of the systems in Classic WoW, just, you cannot take the omega brain of every single Classic WoW nerd, put together their collective 62 IQs to equal one gigantic 620 IQ, and then think that they're not going to be able to figure out a way around your mechanics. Because that's what really ends up happening, is that it's not like one person that figures this shit out. It's like everybody working together and then one-upping each other and then adding on a little bit. Because some of these systems were added into the game in a time that the internet wasn't as prevalent, and collaboration with figuring out like optimization and min-maxing wasn't as much of a thing.
It's only really a very short-term fix. On top of that, we had multi-boxers of 1 druid, 1 priest, 3 mages. Who remembers those who were sitting in Strat Undead all day, every day, to the point where righteous orbs were getting towards vendor price. This was also similar in Sunken Temple, where they were just chain farming the place for leatherworking, as well as the drops that you could get in there.
And
this was something that was not
that.
addressed for absolutely ages, until Blizzard straight up banned multi-boxing, which was something that targeted automation on both the retail version of the game as well as Classic, by making the software solutions against the rules. And then eventually,
I thought it was so fucking funny that like the multi-boxers were like, oh, they're never gonna ban us. We just pay to win. We love winning by paying money. Losers. And then Blizzard literally just bans them. That's it. Just banned. And all those multi-boxing losers just got fucking Thanos snapped into oblivion. You never hear about them anymore. And what was really funny to me is a few of the streamers that were multi-boxers that like people thought they were kind of good because they would win in multi-boxing. Now they can only play one character. All 10 of their characters playing together equaled like one good player. Well, now they're only playing one character. So they're only about 10% as good as they used to be.
They also made hardware solutions against the rules. You can still multi-box if you're tabbing between characters, but anything that multiplies what you're doing will get you banned. We had the rogue bots, pickpocketing, and Blackrock depths. From what I can tell, this has been completely eradicated on Seasonal Mastery now. I don't know why this hasn't been ported over to TBC as well. I'd assume they exist there to some extent still, or maybe there are just more lucrative farms that they can go after. Either way, no other instance with that volume of high-level humanoid mobs comes to mind where they could easily run around and do a pickpocketing loop. On top of that, loot has been adjusted in Zul'Farrak to stop farming in there, bots in there, as well as just people gold farming in there as general, from it being a bit too good for it being instanced.
Yeah,
so
they nerfed a lot of those
it's
things.
Definitely a number of improvements. I agree it's a shame that it's taken this long. I too would like to have a game with absolutely zero bots, zero automation, but no online competitive game is going to be totally free of this kind of activity. Aimbots, wall hacks, auto interrupters, gear swapping scripts, or buying or selling gold for real life money. It's part and parcel of human nature to fervently optimize anything as much as they possibly can, and people will continue to care little enough to get the wallet out so they can play the game that little bit less. I expect it to some degree, but a relatively moderate one, where you can see that effort is being put in to stay on top of it and to maintain the integrity at the heart of the game. Though many of the changes made have been passive ones, which in time may be worked around, and Blizzard and gaming companies do this a lot, by the way. It is considerably cheaper and it's better than nothing. Also, you can now report players via the /.
Yeah, having things be automated, in my opinion, is like really bad if the punishments are automated. Like there are some things, like for example, like if you report somebody for language and then it just sends the language into like a basically control F for every bad word that's in the world, and then if it's a match then it automatically bans you. Like, yeah, that's fair because you clearly said the word, but I feel like just in general that's not something that I want to see. Yeah, buying gold and shit like that is just, they've got to be more on top of that, because the thing is, it's like with FPS I feel like it's even worse. Because with FPS games, like if you start having a lot of botting in the game, the people that lose no longer actually lose and think they want to get better. They lose and get mad because they think they lost to a botter, which is like one of the worst feelings for a player to have.
Function. This is a new-ish feature in Classic. Before that, you had to whisper somebody and then report them after. This gives players a better ability to report should somebody not be directly in front of them. In terms of recognizing bots, they're very similar to how they've always been. They often use click to move, so they're going to make very sharp turns, little to no strafing or turning. They're going to be absolutely decked out and bind on equipped gear. They are not playing the game and questing like you are.
No.
They're grinding in obscure locations. Try a /u of Verilus or Ashara and see what you can find, for example. level. Typically,
Find
they
some
don't
bad
have
boys
guilds,
out
but some of
there.
them just accept any old invites to make them look that little bit more believable. The majority of the bots I've seen so far on Season of Mastery have been rogues or hunters, mages.
Because you can't
at this
see
point
them.
in time, at least, don't appear to be quite as popular. I believe the hunters are being set up for Diamond tribute runs or just standard mob farming.
Yeah,
as for rogues, I'm not entirely sure really. There are just better classes for mindlessly farming. Because with a thief debuff and BRD, they aren't going to be doing that anymore. Mages aren't going to...
So also, like, Blizzard made a lot of changes. Basically, Blizzard is like the meme of the guy that's on the wall that won't touch the floor, and it says the floor is X. Well, with this one, the floor is actually moderating the game, and Blizzard's on the wall. Like, they'll do anything else. They'll blacklist words, they'll change mechanics, they'll add debuffs into the game, they'll retool other mechanics, they'll add new mechanics into the game. They'll do anything they possibly can, except actually paying people money to fix the game, to moderate. Like, that's the one thing they're like, okay, is there anything else that we can do instead?
Be able to do Mara or Strat anymore. The mobs gain eventual immunities to roots and slows, and then gain additional movement speed, so that is not going to be happening.
These are all the anti-botting.
And I've heard that
and
the
like,
change made to being able to loot items from the chest was made based on a design flaw of clearly the intention wasn't that you should be able to give them out to other players, because the items in the chest themselves are soulbound. Josh from Countdown did an interview with Brian Birmingham, team lead on Classic, not so long ago. I'll link it below if you
the
fancy
tribute selling thing was dumb.
And there's 2 points I wanted to mention that he went over on it, because they do go quite into detail on how botting looks from Blizzard's end. Brian also talks about the fact that players see somebody who is botting, they report them, and then weeks or months later they see that same name crop up again and again. And he says that's because when a player is banned, the name is released and the botters go back onto it and make another character with the same name. So in one of the clips I'm showing here,
wait, let me read that again. Let me listen to that again.
The character that, and then weeks or months, and also talks about the fact that players see somebody up again and again, and he says that's because when a player is banned, the name is released and the botters go back onto it and make another character with the same name.
I think that's bullshit. Yeah, I think that's bullshit, because you know how I know that's bullshit probably is because nobody stole Reckful's name whenever he got permabanned back in the day. You see what I'm saying? I think that's bullshit. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not, and this actually is true. But, like, why would they do that? Why would they rename their character to a character that already got banned? Wouldn't that just make them easier to be detected? Like, it just seems like such a stupid thing.
So, in one of the clips I'm showing here, there is an absolute infestation of bots in Stranglethorn Vale. This was quite
I have a permabanned account, I can't use those names.
I reported all of these players, and I
bullshit.
did receive 4 confirmation mails saying they have been banned. So, let's go through all of their names and see if A, they are available for me to take, or B, if I can see them online at the moment. And we'll go through all these in the background now, but the short of it is I went through all of them and none of the names were available and none of them were online either. Also, they mentioned that a 3-day ban for buying gold may be considered too low. I don't know if this is already...
May be considered too low. Just ban them for 6 months.
Been extended, but it would be good to have a bit more than a slap on the wrist for doing something like this. Buyers are a problem just as much as sellers. So overall, I'd say there is less botting and it is less impactful,
but
because
there's less people.
There are just less people playing than Classic and less people raiding on top of that, so less demand for consumables. Consumables are easier to acquire, so the burden of farming gold has been diminished. We have more gold farms available for players from day one. Players also seem more casual by and large, with less hardcore attitudes to progression. As a result, gold sellers are less frequent and there just is not as much in demand.
Which is a good thing.
I don't think you're going to see anything too unreasonable until GDKP start appearing and somebody starts dropping 20k on an Onslaught Girdle or a Bone Reader's
then
Edge.
You'll see
to me, they will always be the
back.
end game of real money trading. And yes, everybody interacts with RMT to a degree due to the nature of how gold is traded, but you don't...
I had to get another drink, sorry about that.
Go to buy a stack of dream foil from the auction house and some swiper decides to bid you up to 50 gold for the stack. Prices on the auction house are mediated by people who actually earn their own gold and understand the value and time that went into earning it. Also, it involves every single player on the server, not the handful of bidders for whatever item it may be, dependent on RNG drops. So there we go. Botters, real money trading, gold buying,
It's really funny for me to see how low the prices are for a lot of these items compared to how it was on Fairlina back in the original Classic. It was so much more fucking expensive.
Selling, far from gone, But I mean, come on, real money trading on a seasonal server? You have to be kidding me. It's not as bad as it was, but definitely still exists. Let me know if you've seen anything too bad in your experience and how things have been going on your server. And as always, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you on the next one very soon.
Very glad to see that the botting stuff is at least being partially taken care of, and it's not as bad. I'm glad that Blizzard added in some fail-safes, like the stuff that they had with, you know, like the BRD thing and like the mobs gaining movement speed if they're being kited for too long, etc. Like, these are all good things. However, there is a long way to go, and I think if Blizzard ever really wants to get ahead of this issue, they have to actually invest real money into it, which seems to be, as I said, the only thing that they're not willing to do. Back in Manila, I used to grind out Mithril and Thorium, craft bullets. 20. Now, I'd understand why I'd periodically have someone whisper me and say, reported, I didn't know I was being suspicious. Oh, right. People thinking that you're a bot. Yeah, that happened too. I guess we just triggered Pandora's box when we wished for Classic. I don't think so at all. I think Classic was massively successful. Even TBC is massively successful from Blizzard's eyes because they do nothing. All they do is they put a server up and people just play the game. Like, oh, wow, I wonder what we're going to do for Tier 6. Well, you don't have to wonder because it already happened. You just re-release the same thing. It's like, oh man, it's such a pain in the ass for Bethesda to re-release Skyrim again. Oh my god, it must take them so much work and time. No, it fucking doesn't. They just repackage the same shit. Straight up lied about bots, told us to go play retail if we wanted rebalancing of hybrid specs in Classic, and says that there are constrained resources whenever they literally stole 15 bucks from us per character for each character copy. Now all of a sudden it's going to be a free service. Yeah, I don't want to hear about how they have, like, constrained resources and stuff like that either. I mean, if Classic players are paying a sub, and their sub is the same amount as a retail player, they should expect to have some degree of development. It's unfair to not think that. Yeah, it's just crazy. And if that's not the case, you should make the Classic sub only accessing Classic realms $10 or $5. Or free. Yeah, just fix the game. Make the game better. I do think that in a couple more rounds of Seasons of Mastery, and they want to introduce like new real content, then yeah, they should think about rebalancing the game. You know, give Moonkins better mana regen. Give Ret Paladins Crusader Strike. You know, like tone down a little bit of like the rage generation with warriors if they get too much good gear, right? Like there are some things that they need to do if they want to make it rebalanced, but that's not for a while. Like probably like that's a year and a half out, 2 years out. You know, stop ignite, rolling ignites, you know, in like Nax where it's just like ridiculously high. So yeah, I mean, it depends. In time, I think that'll happen. Either way, I think this is a good video. I'm going to link you guys a video, then we're going to do a little bit of Dark Souls. I like WillE. I've watched a lot of his videos before. He's always had really good Classic content. So if you guys want to watch him or support him, go on ahead.